Okay, well, welcome everybody. My name is Brad Stoller. I've got a nice surprise guest today, but we're going to be talking about how to sell security, but we're going to do it in a different way that it's a little bit different. Like I said, it's a little different, of course, but I think you're going to have a good time with this. We're going to have fun at the same time. And also, if you have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If we don't get to them right away, we'll make sure we catch them at the end, if nothing else. But it's important that you understand that selling security is really not as difficult as it has to be. So with that in mind, we're going to dive right in. So first of all, before I get started, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So if you could just give me a simple yes in the chat, that would be great. Okay, sounds like we're in good shape. So we're talking about today about the top 3 problems derailing even the best when they sell or attempt to sell security. So I'm going to start out with a story of somebody we're going to call Cyber Charlie. So Cyber Charlie is, Charlie's bright. I mean, he's really bright. So he knows what needs to be done, but his clients and prospects, they, according to Charlie anyhow, they just don't seem to get it. Okay, and he's just really struggling to bring in enough clients to keep his business going, and he's starting to get a little concerned because he just can't seem to to get clients to close business, and he doesn't know why. So today, we're going to walk you through. So I'm going to introduce you to your guides and Charlie's guides as well. But again, my name is Brad Stoller. I'm the founder of Creativity Counts. I work a lot with MSPs, a few MSSPs, cybersecurity professionals. I like to think more of as a coach than somebody who just, here you go, here's a lead for you, good luck. That's just not who I am. Read a lot of different articles. If you've seen them, there's some on Channel Futures, Smarter MSP, and I speak occasionally. I used to speak, and now we speak online because we can't go anywhere right now, but started up a podcast called The Tech Report, so if you haven't seen that, tune in. I've met a lot of really neat people on the Tech Report. Our guest is one of them. And a lot of people just call me a serial entrepreneur because it seems like I'm always tinkering with some type of business somewhere. So that's who I am. Our guest today is Dovell Bonnett. Dovell is the founder of a company called Access Smart, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his company a little bit later, but Dovell is definitely what I would call a cybersecurity expert. Not a wannabe, but Dovell knows his stuff. Really good. He's an author. He's got a nice book out there you can get on Amazon. Talks all about password management, which is his specialty. Before, again, the pandemic, Dovell was, you could catch him on speaking engagements throughout the country talking about cybersecurity. So pretty well known in that realm. The little known fact is the people who work for Microsoft, they all carry those little cards. Well, somebody on this show, and it wasn't me, invented those badges and tied them into security. So again, it wasn't me, and there's only 2 of us on here, so guess who that was? And he's also pretty well known as being a security consultant. So Dovell, thanks for coming on board.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about the top 3 mistakes that people are making with cybersecurity and again, sales of cybersecurity. And again, we're going to have some fun because Dovell's going to kind of take over here in a little bit. I'm more on the sales side. He's more of, well, shoot, Dovell's a good salesperson, although he won't admit it. But let's just dive in here. So the top 3 mistakes that people are making. The very first one, and it is absolutely critical, and a lot of people just blow right past it. And that is they ignore the bonding, or when first talking with a prospect, how do they get a relationship built up? And a lot of them just like to dive right in and just start talking about themselves and their solutions. Don't ignore that. We're going to talk about all these individually just in a second, but the second one is they don't listen. to the client or prospect. They just simply, we have a term that we use in the sales world. It's called show up and throw up. Bad term if you're in sales. So you don't really just want to show up and start just talking again about yourself, all the awards you've won, you know, how all these solutions and how you've, you know, done everything with all these big companies that nobody cares. They want you to make sure that they listen to what they have to say. And if you don't, then you're probably not going to be real successful. And the last part is if you do make it past number 1 and 2 somehow, muddle through, and they ask you to do a presentation, I'm going to say probably, Dovell, you can chime in on this as well, but I'm going to say probably 8, 9 out of 10 violate this tremendously. And that is the presentation is really just all about, here's the price, here's the line item of everything we have to offer, and that's pretty much about it. Dovell, does that sound familiar to you?
Oh, yes. And yeah. I have gone to sleep during many of those presentations.
Exactly. And like I said, we're going to go through Dovell's presentation that this is one that actually he used not too long ago. The names have been taken out, of course, but I really like it. And as he's going through it, we get the chance to kind of ask him some questions. So it's kind of cool. So let's get back to Cyber Charlie here. Looks good, right? You got the tablet. Hey, we're great, right? That's step 1, right? Wrong. He's ignoring the bonding. And that is, how do you build trust during that first meeting? And usually what happens is, if you're meeting somebody for this time, and now we have to kind of convert everything to virtually meeting, okay? So whether you're doing it live in person with the mask on, or you're doing virtual across the country, doesn't really matter, but you need to ask some questions. And Dovell, let me just kind of role play with you just a little bit here. So this is the first time that we've met. And I'm a cybersecurity professional and you're a business owner. Okay. Is that cool with that?
I'm great with that.
All right, good. So I'm going to start out with, hey, Mr. Dovell. It's been a long day already, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Bill, my name is Brad. Hey, nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. So, and you have a seat or whatever. And Dovell, I'm just kind of curious of, gosh, you could have done anything with your life, right? So how did you start this, toilet paper company? How did you end up making rolls of toilet paper for everybody? Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so I would probably go into, my grandfather started this, and he was really great at toilet paper because there was a need for it, and then we came up with new solutions, and then his son got into it, and then I'm into it, and so I'd probably go through the history of how we started our company.
Exactly. So what's going to end up happening is I'm asking Dovell about his toilet paper company. He's starting to tell me the history of the company. He's starting to talk about his grandfather, his father, and how his family came out because there's a need. There's a big need. Everybody has a need, right? But what's really happening is the more Dovell talks to me about him, the quicker the relationship starts. Okay, so that's step 1. And if you don't feel there's a good relationship, if you guys aren't chuckling a little bit together, you're not quite there yet. So you might follow up with another question. Another question could be just something as simple as, gosh, Dovell, hey, today's world, we're in the pandemic, right? How were you guys able to keep up with demand? I mean, toilet paper is going off the shelves. What did you guys have to do to keep up?
Right. And so now I can start talking about some of the clever things that we've done, and we start building a rapport there. And you start listening and you start chiming in of what can be done.
Exactly. So that's all what we just referred to as bonding or building trust. And you have to understand that has nothing to do with cybersecurity at all. Do not bring it up until you get that where you guys start chuckling a little bit and you feel like you're starting to bond, as the word says. And once that happens, okay, now you can go to step 2. And that is, a lot of people don't listen to their client. They just dive right in. And if Charlie's got his back turned here on the left, and his customer's trying to talk, but Charlie's not paying attention. He's looking at the wall. And that's what a lot of everybody's on the line right now. That's what happens. Don't feel bad. Like I said, 8 or 9 out of 10 professional salespeople do this. So you have to kind of understand this is a big deal. So you have to ask some questions. And so a question you might ask is, Dovell, I'm just kind of curious, we're here today and thanks for sharing the story with, about the toilet paper. That's pretty neat. Never would have really thought there's that much that goes into toilet paper, right? But I'm just kind of curious. You took the meeting here today. I work with security and keeping your company safe from being hacked, ransomware, and all that. So I'm just kind of curious, what's on your mind? And then when Dovell would answer that, Dovell, give me a typical answer when I say, hey, what's on your mind? Why did you take the meeting here today?
I have a number of requirements. Government is making specifications on me that I have to have this type of security, and I have no idea what this is about. There's so much said about cybersecurity, I don't even know where to start.
I got you. So that's question one, and you have to understand the first time that they answer, you're not going to really get the true picture. Now, Dovell did a pretty good job. Most of the times, they may give you a tip of the iceberg of what's really going on inside their heads. So you need to follow up with another question. Don't let them off the hook yet, and don't move on. And by all means, do not say, oh, we can take care of that. Stay away from that. The next thing is, so government's regulations, I'm not sure, what do you mean by that? What are they wanting you to do? Go ahead, Dovell.
Okay. So because of a number of the breaches, they tell me because of HIPAA that I need to have a better way to log in a more secure network so I can keep the hackers out.
Okay, sounds great. So question 3 is, so I'm kind of curious, so what have you tried so far, and why didn't it work?
Well, we try to go and teach the employees about how to do better cybersecurity maintenance and monitoring and housekeeping, but that's not working.
I'm just kind of curious, so why do you suppose that's not working?
Because the hackers seem to be much cleverer than the people are, and they're able to do different techniques to get past.
Okay, understandable. So what's the real issue here if they get in and hack into your company? So have you ever thought about what the financial ramifications could be if they're successful doing that?
Well, this is some of the things I'm learning, but I did read that if I do get hacked and it's severe enough, my company go bankrupt because of all the lawsuits that I'm going to receive.
Oh, I got it. So we go all the way from a grandfather started the company to dad ran the company for a bunch of years. Now it's your turn for toilet paper. So what you're saying is this could actually, if somebody were to come into your company, hack in, steal all your data, they could actually shut your company down because you got all these people wanting to sue you. Is that what I heard?
Yep.
How does that make you feel?
I don't sleep much at nights anymore.
I understand. Okay, so if you hadn't noticed, what we did is we took the one main question we started out with and we layered it. I think I asked about 5 different questions there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I ended up doing is I went from just kind of a facts, where government says we have to, have a better program. Okay, that's a fact. To eventually work with the last question, it was, well, Dovell, how does that make you feel? And what we're trying to do is we work him towards emotion. And people buy from emotion. They do not necessarily buy from facts and figures. Doesn't say they don't buy, but they prefer to buy. You will always sell at a higher price. You always have a higher closing ratio if you work in emotion, because people tend to buy from emotion first, and then they back it up with all the facts and figures. So that's why it's important to listen to your client, because they're going to tell you what you need to do to sell them. And then the last part is the presentation, or I'm just going to call it the quote, because that's what all pretty much it is. Everybody line items, their pricing and everything, and it's all just about them. How they might throw in a testimonial, maybe if some of them don't even do that, but they don't really hit on any of the problems that conversation you had when you're asking those questions, and that's a big mistake. Dovell, you and I have gone back and forth on these presentations. And that's one thing I think we both share in common. And that's why I think Dovell and I get along so well, is that we share a lot of ideas. So we're going to get into Dovell's presentation here real quick. But but before, again, it happens again, we got Cyber Charlie here scratching his head, trying to come up with some ideas. Empty boardroom in the back room, crickets chirping, no sale. Okay, so all you've done is when you don't do these things properly, you're leaving your prospect confused. They feel like, in this case, this guy felt like Charlie never addressed any of his concerns at all. And in fact, he doesn't even like Charlie, because Charlie came across as very arrogant because all he did was talk about himself. So there we go. So let's do this. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to switch this around just a bit. And we're going to get in and we're going to go and I want Dovell to actually go through one of his presentations. And I'm going to stop him every once in a while and just ask some questions. You know, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why do you think it's important to do this? So make notes. If you have some questions, put them in the chat box. And again, we're going to try and keep this thing moving along because we got a lot to his presentation. Isn't terribly long, but I don't want to take up all day here. But if you would, put your questions in the chat, and then we'll kind of go over them towards the end there. Okay, so Dovell, it's all yours. Dovell, are you with me?
It's that little mute button that you have to do.
Technology, right?
Yeah. I guess people aren't lip readers.
Oh, well, at least on this anyhow. So
Yeah.
anyway, so go ahead. And if,
Okay. So I was just saying, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. And just to give a quick background on this presentation, this is one that I did for an MSP a while back to kind of express to them how they get into cybersecurity and how they can upsell their customers. So this isn't something that we just threw together. This is what I use for a lot of MSPs. So for some reason, I'm not seeing your screen, Brad. So I'm going to just go ahead and look at my presentations and then tell you where I am at. So I'm on the value advantage. Is that the one you're showing?
Hang on a second here, Dovell. I think I hit the wrong way. We're technically a lot. Hey, we know what we're talking about. We just can't operate this stuff very well.
Yeah.
But, I guess that's the fun I was talking about, evidently.
Ah, there we go.
There
now
we go.
I see it.
Okay, can everybody see that now? Okay.
Okay, so let's go to the value advantage. So the way I like to, first of all, present this, and as Brad set it up perfectly, was that it's not about my company. It's not about what I've done. It's not where I've gone. It's about the customer and what are they trying to achieve. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was that you already have customers. How about trying to upsell them? It's certainly much easier to upsell an existing customer than it is to go and constantly try to get new ones. Now, because we do cybersecurity and we do this with your ID badge that gets you in the building, and this is what this MSP was doing also, I talked about how you're able to save the customer money by not having them go and rebadge and do any type of credential reissuance. And that's a huge expense for their customer if they had to go and propose that. So again, you're telling your customer, we're going to save you money in doing this, and we're going to get you the security you need. Next slide. So you don't have to be an IT, you need to go back one. You don't have to be an IT expert in order to do this. This is some of the things that we do. Brad, can you go back one slide? There. Zero risk to the customer and all the benefits. And so many times I kept hearing about, oh, we got to talk features and benefits, features and benefits. No, it is benefits. And then what are those features that you have that back up those benefits? Okay, so now we
go. When you say, because this is one of the things that's, again, it's violated the most. People go in there and, like we said, Cyber Charlie goes in there and he just, as we call it, show up and throw up. And what you're saying is, talk a little bit more about that, the features versus the benefits in that, just so they understand why that's so big of a deal.
Even as a consumer, if you're going to buy a stereo or anything in the store, you're going to look at what are the benefits to this. How well am I going to hear this? How easy it to operate? Do I like the colors? You're going to have all those emotional factors, and those are all the benefit things. Then you're going to go and pull up the spreadsheet or the spec sheet and say, oh, it operates at this frequency and it has this range and this dB and all. These are things that most people don't even understand in the first place. So why go in there and talk about all of these scientific technology features that, first of all, nobody understands, and they don't know how that pertains to their business, other than, okay, I'm going to be able to hear this. I'm going to be able to hear the music that I want to hear. So that's really what it comes down to. People buy on benefits and they justify their sales on the features, as you've also said.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that you're very good at this, and I think you take it for granted, but a lot of people out there don't understand how important that is. So I'll be quiet for a couple more seconds.
Okay. No, please. So we can go on to the next slides.
Okay.
Okay. Next. I want to get all the there. So one of the things that we talk about and what we do is the password security. And so one of the first questions I will ask a customer is, so who thinks passwords are insecure? Everyone raises their hand and they say, okay, great. What's wrong with passwords? Oh, they're too long. Oh, they keep changing them on me. That's not a password problem. That's a password management problem. Oh, well, I've got to go and put in special characters and do this, and I can't use the same password. That's not a password problem. That's a password management problem. So by, first of all, asking the question, you understand where your customer's mindset is, so you can then set up the sales policy or the procedure in order to then get them to come over to your side. And I would do this in front of crowds. And I think after the second or third time, somebody bring up a fourth type of topic as to what's wrong with passwords. And then pretty soon the crowd is answering, that's a password management problem.
Yep, exactly.
So that's what you want. You want to get buy-in from your customer and the people you're talking to. And so then you throw out something shocking that they look what I deal with in the cybersecurity side, PKI, public key infrastructure, very complex, and biometrics. And there are people who are so sold into it because they bought into the marketing. So you throw in something that's just going to cause them to think, to pause. What is he saying? How can passwords be more secure than these other types of security that I have been told about? So you throw a little monkey wrench in, and that keeps them interested. Okay.
Yep.
So let's see the whole slide. So, you get into, where are the problems in the cybersecurity? Here are the big issues. And we have weak passwords because of who we let manage them. IT can also be their own worst enemy in the things that they do and the policies they throw onto the employees. They come up with these really great things that look on paper, but they don't follow up as to how are they actually being managed. And the way it's being managed is the Post-it note under the keyboard, which we all know is not that secure.
Until the cleaning company comes in, right? Well, they never clean under there anyhow, right?
Right. And you don't sell FUD, and FUD is the acronym for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There are two people you're selling to, usually when you're talking to a company. You're talking to the IT person because they have the security requirements that they have to meet, and they have to have a secure network and all. But then you also have to talk to the CEO, CFO, and they're the ones with the money. They're the ones who are going to fund the purchase. So you have to have a little bit of a different spin for them. And as a CEO myself, I am constantly surrounded by fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Am I going to get that sale? How am I going to make payroll? I mean, it's all these different things that you constantly go through. What's one more? If someone comes to me and says, oh, you've got this other fear out there, great, add it to the list. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me. So that's where you don't want to sell the fear, uncertainty, and doubt to the CEO because they don't care.
Exactly. And something else too that I ran across this recently is that somebody told me that we are programmed as individuals to conserve our energy, conserve our calories, I think they called it. And Dovell, I don't know if you might have heard this as well, but so we're all programmed. So if somebody's going to come in and we have to think about something, or if it's going to be a threat like this FUD, as Dovell, the acronym, then we kind of we all just automatically shut down a little bit. We don't want to hear any more things that's going to take our time. We have to get nervous about it. We have to see, oh my gosh, is this a threat? And then we have to shut out. So I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense. So we can't really scare the crap out of them and expect that they're going to just jump on board. Is that what you're saying, Dovell?
Yeah, and you listen to the news, we got enough things to scare the crap out of us.
Every day, many times a day. You got it.
Okay, so here I want to kind of talk a little bit more about the weakest link, and that was the employee. Now, the employee is not a bad person. They're not trying to break into the system and cause all these different issues. They're not given the tools. Let's go to the next slide. They're not given the tools in order to go and meet the security that they need. So the number one rule when it comes to security, and so many companies don't seem to understand it, that when security is cumbersome to the user, they will circumvent it for their own convenience. And this could be through physical access, where you have the tailgating that everybody walks through at the same time. It's how the passwords are done. So years ago, when I did a book, I had the dummies book, and I had them create this little cartoon for us as to whoever stole my passwords was clever because none of my reminders are missing. But that's what they had to do, was to go and put all of these reminders, because the way IT has made security so cumbersome for them. Okay, next. Let's see this line. So here, of course, we don't have a password problem. We have a password management problem. Years ago, I had a marketing firm that I made a bet with that I could find the password to any of employees, and he said, no, we have a written policy that says you are not allowed to write passwords on Post-it notes or keep them out anywhere. So I made a bet with him for a steak dinner at Ruth Chris, and I said, you pick the cubicle. The only requirement is the cubicle has to be where somebody is actually working, where there's an employee, and I get 5 minutes. Well, in 3 minutes, I found the Kleenex box with the sticky note underneath with all the passwords on it. And this is where, again, a password policy of having, what you're going to do means nothing unless you have the security and the convenience for the employee to be able to manage it effectively. So, okay. We can go on to the next. Here's where I was kind of talking about IT being their own worst enemy. We can kind of go through this one quickly, I think. But this is where all the policies, and we've all seen them. You have to have a 12-character password now. It has to be uppercase, lowercase. It must have one number, one special character. And that same password can't be used anyplace else. You can't share that password with anybody. And we got to change them every 60 days. And there's more to it than that. And that's where the employees are going to write them on Post-it notes. As we like to call it, sticky note security. Okay. And so here are just some of the policies and the different organizations that have come up with these different rules and regulations. Everything from Microsoft to New York Times to the NIST. They've got documents. And I see some of these things that people come up with of how to go and remember and manage their passwords with password phrases. Well, that's nice, but you're going to remember a different phrase for every single account that you have. And I jokingly referred to it as you've got a great password policy if you were using a Commodore 64 and you wanted to keep your little sister out of reading your emails. It doesn't work for today. The hackers are very clever. They have got very sophisticated tools, and the tools are such that even an unsophisticated hacker can get them and do a lot of damage. So you've got to be very careful and be more vigilant as to what's going on out there. And just putting in a antivirus program, that's not going to do it for you either. Okay.
Yeah, Dovell, I just got, right before we came on here today, I got another email. I get several of these a day, but it's just kind of ironic that it came right before our session here. But it had my email address on. It said something about Office 365 requires you to change your password every 60 days for security reasons. Of course, log in and change your password, right? Of course, you're supposed to log in from the link on the email, of course, and then of course you look up on the URL, and then it's not right. So
right,
totally bogus. But that's out there all the time, and it just every employee out there is getting this, and they may or may not know. Most of them don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And they're not trying to be bad. They're trying to be helpful. And the social engineering calls, I mean, that is going out so easily, and the people using it. And kind of the example I'll do is a hacker will go in and they'll research your company. And they will find out who does your IT and who's your CTO. And because all of that's on Facebook and social media, on your website, because you got to put all that stuff out there. So the information's out there in the public. And these hackers do their research and they do it. They don't just kind of come on to you all of a sudden, at least not the good ones. And so then they call up, and let's say your IT person name is Joe, who goes, "Hi, I'm working with Joe over here in IT, and he's telling me that the computers are running a little slow and wants to see if there's a problem." And you look at some of these operating systems, they are slow. I mean, there's nothing with all the stuff that we have in our computers. They run slow. That's the nature of the beast. And so you'll say, "Oh, yeah, it's really, that's what we thought." Well, tell me your username, password. I'm going to log in as you, and I'm going to clean out all of the problems that you've got. And the person's trying to be helpful. Well, he mentioned, Joe is the IT person, so he must be knowing what he's talking about. And they will release the username and passwords to their account. That's what happened with Twitter not too long ago when they're hacked. It's happened with Facebook. It happened with the US government and the DNC a number of years back. I mean, Podesta had a password at one point as password. That was really secure. So
Better than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
well, yeah, well, actually the number one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So by putting the 7 in there, at least you're a little more secure.
Not more secure than 6, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that people are trying to do bad things. It's that they have to be able to manage these computers and all their information in a convenient way.
Yep.
Okay. And so this is kind of the typical reaction when IT comes up with all these rules as to what they have to follow. Okay. Post-it notes. Let's kill passwords. What's next one? So one of the things that has been brought up numerous times is that, oh, we need to kill passwords. If you are familiar with what they referred to as the 3 factors of authentication, these are the 3 things that are commonly accepted as to how do you prove you are who you say you are. And this is something that you have, a card, a token, something physical, something your PIN, your password, secret phrase, whatever. It's knowledge base. And then it's something you are. And that's your face, your biometrics, your fingerprint, your voice print, things like that makes you unique. So when they start talking about, oh, we got to go kill passwords, they are never going to do it, because why would you get rid of one of the 3 factors of authentication and go down to 2? So again, it's not the password is the problem or the knowledge is the problem. It's how it's been managed. And so that's what really needs to be solved. And passwords offer some unique advantages that none of the other factors do. You can change them quickly. I don't know about you, but if I had to go into biometrics, I think it'd be a little painful to go in and have to change my fingerprint or fingertips, or I certainly don't want to go through an iris scan. And one thing about passwords that's unique that nobody ever really talks about, it is the only form of authentication that is actually protected by the 5th Amendment. And that's because it's knowledge, and you cannot disclose knowledge as self-incrimination. So you don't have to give out a password.
So
Okay.
before you go on to your next slide, again, I just wanted to kind of, again, the whole point of this webinar is, well, there's 2 points. I wanted to introduce you guys to Dovell because I think he can help you guys sell more security. That's why, and I asked him to go through this. We're kind of doing 2 things at the same time. But the sales part of it, if you would notice that, I don't know everybody out there, but maybe this is all new to you. But you guys are the professionals, okay? So if it's new to anybody, it shouldn't be you, right? But I think you might be picking up a few things as well. The point is, he's educating the client as he goes through, and the idea is to get their eyebrows to come up like, oh, never knew that. I never gave that a thought. So I think he's done a very good job of doing that as he's going through this presentation. So again, Dovell, be quiet.
And no, that's fine. And just to ask you one simple question. Have I mentioned my product yet?
Do you have a product?
Yeah.
Good point. Good.
Yeah. I haven't talked about my product. I haven't talked about my company once.
Exactly. It's all about the client and their issues right now. That's all he's talking about. And again, I thought we would rip apart. Sorry, Dovell. I thought we'd rip apart Dovell's presentation here, but I think it's by ripping it apart, we're actually just analyzing it. And if you can learn something from this, create it, use it yourself, and obviously you don't have to use his, but kind of watch the pattern that he's doing. And if you can learn something from that, I think that'll definitely help you.
And I have a limited number of time here, but you notice I also told stories. People
Yes.
remember stories. And when you're selling to somebody, they will forget what you told them. They will forget what they saw or what they read, but they will always remember how they felt. And so when you're doing one of these presentations, you want the audience to, when they leave, to have a certain feeling afterwards, like, gosh, I really felt like I can do this, or this is secure. And maybe a week later, said, I remember that presentation, how I felt with it. I don't remember how to do it. So let me call him back and let me ask him. But this is kind of what we're trying to present here, is to have your customer, when you're doing a presentation, leave with a feeling that you want them to leave with. Now, I want you to have a good feeling, but maybe you want anxiety in their feeling, so they call you back. Whatever it is that you want, that's what you're trying to project here.
Yeah, and just a funny story. Before we came on, Dovell was asking me, I was going through his hair, and he has hair, I don't, but he was going through and said, well, should I wear my hat or should I not? And the story was, if you want them to remember you, Dovell, wear your hat, because Dovell, if you hadn't guessed, he's a Texan. Okay, so that's what they wear in Texas, but I'm from Pennsylvania, so we don't wear hats like that. We just show off our baldness with pride. But that's one thing that I told him. I thought, wear your hat, because I think people remember. They may forget your name, although it's unique. Probably won't forget your, the name Dovell. But I need to call the guy with that big hat. That's kind of anything you can do to help people remember you by, I think is a good way. So we'll keep on going here. So I'll be quiet.
So let's go on. Next, let's bring up all these slides. So this is kind of where I was talking about, here are all of the different issues that a CEO already has to worry about in the matter of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, what they've got to deal with. So let's go on. So when it comes, one of the things they get confused with on the way of cybersecurity, there are so many different aspects of cybersecurity. It's not a single silver bullet that's going to solve it. It's not one little piece of software. There are so many layers to it, and everybody's out there pitching their particular layer. And here's just an example of some of the tools and things that are out there. And if you had to go and try to understand what each one of these products do and what are their pros and cons, you couldn't do it. It's just too much. And this is an older slide, so there's a lot of new stuff out there. Okay.
Exactly. I think the point is, do your best not to have your customer confused, because confusion equals no sale. Just remember.
Right. So here, one of the things I've come up with is that, what does the CEO really think about? And what are their concerns? What are their requirements to do? And one of the things is, if I purchase this, how will it, and then next slide, increase my sales, revenue, customers? I mean, that's what they're concerned about. Z wants to know, how are they going to get more money? Because they have to answer to the shareholders. They might have to answer to a board of directors. They certainly have to meet payroll. So revenue, sales, that's important to them. How's it going to lower my costs and operations? So you've got to come up with things that show them that, okay, with this product, you're going to be able to increase your productivity. You're going to be able to lower your operational costs. And then the next thing is, of course, how is this product going to help my brand? How am I going to be able to market that I can use this stuff and get more customers because of what I'm doing? That's what they're thinking about. So this is how we've tried to approach our product and how we try to get our message out there. So now I'm actually talking about my product. So I might stop and say, are there any questions, anything on this before we go into a lot of the other stuff. But you can kind of see I've tried to set up a story. I tried to set up a relationship. I also tried to set up some emotions. Brad, anything?
No, I think that's exactly it. And we talked about this earlier. You never really talk about you
Yep.
until you fully go over their situation. And so it's not only so you understand them, but it is so that they understand that you understand them.
Mm-hmm.
So your goal is not to be the hero in the story here. Your goal is to really be the guide. And you're going to guide that CEO or the IT manager, whoever you're going to be working with. Your job is to really guide them to success. It is not so you can be the knight in shining armor that saves their company, because they don't need that. They don't want that. They want to be the ones who save the company, not you.
Right.
So good point. Very, very good point. But you do have to get into what you have and who you are at some point, and I think we're there.
Yeah, and that's giving your credibilities that you're able to talk to them, but that they'll ask those questions at some point. So you also want to start setting up your imagination, getting their mind to work and using the right words. So you start going thinking, imagine the cost savings. Now, I'm not telling them the cost savings yet, but I'm letting them imagine, what could those cost savings look like? Imagine improved productivity. Ooh, what could that be like? So again, I'm using words and present it in such a way that it gets them involved with their own thoughts and not me telling them everything. Okay.
Yeah, you want to create that vision. You want them to create that vision. Your job as that guide is to kind of help them. This is, wow, this really, I can see this happening. I can't, because as soon as they can imagine that cost savings, as soon as they can imagine the improved productivity, and Dovell's going to go on these a little bit later, what those look like, but rather than telling them. Right. So this is good stuff.
And so when I'm talking to an MSP, I'm trying to be the guide to them so they can be the guide to their customer, to their IT person that they're selling to, so that then that person can be the hero. Okay. And so then, I can say, okay, stop imagining, here's some points that you can have. So again, I don't want to take a lot of time going through all of this.
Yeah, I think we get the idea, but this is really good. So
yeah, and so now I'm near the end of the slide presentation. Now I'm actually talking about my product and how we address all of those imaginations and all of those concerns and all of those issues. I start answering them. Okay. And so then I also leave them with one simple question. You want them to have one thought that's so simple, it just comes right down to the meat on the bone here. And that is, we answer the question about how do you log into it? And when I was at Microsoft one time, where I was looking at Azure, they were giving me a presentation of it before it was released and showing me all of the certifications and encryptions and all the other great bells and whistles that they had. And I asked them one simple question: how do you log into it? And they kind of looked at me and said, with your computer. Like, yeah, I got that. How do you log into it? Now they're getting a little upset, like, who is this person? Why are they asking this question? It's kind of stupid. You use your credentials to get in. Oh, okay, credentials. How do you log into it? And just being persistent and asking that same question. And it was out of pure frustration. They came out and said, you type in your username and your password. And that's when I knew I had them. And all I had to say exactly. And as soon as a hacker steals that password, all that other security just went out the window. And being that it was Microsoft, yeah, it was a pun, calling it out the window. But that's when they got it, by asking that one simple little question, and keep probing until you get the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, and I like the way you do it, because you actually it's the same question. You just asked it 3, maybe even 4 times. Mm-hmm. And by just asking it, there was whether you're a Donald Trump fan or not. Okay, so I read all his books, ex-real estate investor here. So I remember one of the stories, and they were talking about one of the big real estate investors of New York City. And I don't recall his name. It's a long time ago, but they asked him, or they presented, here's the price that we'd like to offer. He looks at it and goes, "What?" That's all he said. But the way he said it, well, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean? They came back, well, how about if we could lower this? And he goes, "What?" They went back again. He asked, "What?" And about the third time, he goes, "Okay."
Yep.
But by doing that, asking that one question, it got to exactly what Dovell's point is. So sometimes you got to keep peeling back those layers, if you will. Good.
Okay, next. And I think we can probably start, wrapping up, because I know that if there's any questions, we got about 15 minutes left. And so this was just kind of, again, why I use the ID badge, and just kind of, again, because they were in the physical access world, what it was going to mean to them. Okay, go on. We'll just go through these real fast. And now you can see I start talking specifications, because they're going to run into some of these, and they need to be armed with them. But again, see, it's at the end. I didn't start with this. Again, I didn't start with this either. These are all the different verticals that they could be playing in and things that we've done. So this is giving me credibility to the customer at the end of all the things that I've told them. Now let me share some credibility that I do know what I'm talking about. These are the places that we have sold this to. So this is kind of like, with our resellers agreement and all that, which I know you want to go into later. So we can either do that now or later if you'd like, Brad.
Well, I think the main one of the things is I wanted to introduce everybody to Dovell for two reasons, like I said. One is so you can sell more security. But Dovell has, and Dovell and I met, he did a podcast with me. I started learning more about what he did. And we've been chatting back and forth ever since then. But one thing I noticed, because I work with a lot of MSPs and MSSPs, and I talk to a lot of cybersecurity professionals out there, but what I was finding out that, well, hang on a second. If we want to help them sell more security, well, that's what you're doing. Yeah. And so I'll ask Dovell to kind of explain this here in just a second here, but that's, and he's very successful at it. So I thought, well, let's combine the two. We'll not only teach you how to sell it, but if you like the idea and like the concept of it, then Dovell will tell you, hey, how can you be a reseller, and I'll help you sell my stuff. We both win. Everybody wins. And I'll help you coach you along the way. That's one of the things I noticed about Dovell. He is very, very into coaching, if you will, not just here's a solution, good luck, which is most of what's out there.
So this is kind of where I also repeated one of the things that was on my first slide. So again, just bringing them back to where we started with this, close the loop for them. And this is just more than a product. And here we had some testimonials of what different people have actually said about our product. Again, that's just giving credibility. That is not just me saying how great we are, but it's actually other people out there. So this is why you want testimonials.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to touch just a little bit because, yeah, you're right, Dovell. We are starting to run a little bit short on the time here. We've got a lot to go over here today. But the testimonials is part of your presentation. It's always a good idea because people want to know that you do know your stuff. And they're not going to take your word for it, but they will, we're just a social world right now. We want to hear what everybody else says about you. So it's always a good idea to get that social input, if you will.
Okay, so that's where I'm kind of finished. And so we can either take questions or you can go on to the next section.
Well, let's go back here and hang on a second. We'll go back and finish up our other presentation here. Okay, and again, if you guys have some questions, make sure you put them in the chat, and we will go over them here shortly. So bottom line is, we'll get back to Charlie, Cyber Charlie here. So Cyber Charlie came aboard with Dovell. Okay, Cyber Charlie's fake, let's face it, but the story's a good one. You could be Cyber Charlie. Okay, listen to us. Sales are now happening. And I think if you apply those types of principles, what we talked about a little bit today, if you really notice that there's only really three big things we really discussed. That was it. We just went into detail on. But there you go. So one thing I wanted to kind of, and Dovell is not the type that will come right out and boast or brag about himself. So I guess I will do that for you, Dovell, because I believe in what you do.
Thank you.
He has a tremendous program for becoming a reseller, whether you're an MSP, MSSP, or maybe you're a cybersecurity professional. I know we have all three of you guys on board here today. Doesn't matter, where you fit in here, but if you're a cybersecurity professional, let's say you're into taking care of once somebody's in your network, how do you handle that? Okay, but you don't really have a portion of your program that actually keeps people out on the front end. And Dovell, you call it, I believe, the virtual front door, if I remember right. Okay, so that's what his program's all about. So you can be stronger by actually incorporating what Dovell has into your own program, and you can be just a little bit more complete, and everybody wins, including you. So Dovell, tell us a little bit about your program, what an MSP has to do to become a reseller, and just why on earth it would make sense to partner up with you.
Okay, so as you also stated in the beginning, this first part was really just to talk about how to sell and how I've sold. It wasn't about selling you my product in any way. I just wanted to kind of give you some of the philosophies that I've used that I have seen work numerous times, and the things that I have done over the years. And one of the things, I keep getting these questions, and from that I wrote the book here on making passwords secure. Fixing the weakest link in cybersecurity, which is available on Amazon. But what we did, and it started back in '99 when I was a consultant, and this company came to me called Stoller, which was a division of Motorola, and they said they had this customer that had a security breach, and they wanted to know if I could help them with some type of security on their ID badge. And I said, sure. And the vice president hired me to come in to give an hour presentation. Halfway through the presentation, he stands up, interrupts me, and says, "You're fired." And I'm going, what did I do? And then he starts laughing, and he hands me a piece of paper and says, "You're our new director. Here's your salary." And that customer was that software company we talked about, Microsoft. So when you ever see a Microsoft ID badge, I'm the inventor of putting physical and logical together on the same ID badge for them. And so I've done this numerous times. And I've done so much in PKI and all these advanced security. And when you look at PKI, it is not the algorithm that makes it secure. It is not how the keys are generated that makes it secure. It's how they protect that private key. To a computer, that private key is just a glorified password. So that's kind of the background of what we did with how we did it. And we wanted to add it on to the physical access badge. The same badge that gets you into the physical door gets you past the virtual door, as we call it. So we now have started up a resellers program where we offer you all the solutions that you can resell. We do not sell to the end users anymore. If we do get a call from an end user customer, we will pass those on to our resellers. And we give you very good margins to do this, but we also give you the tools. We have some training material as to what are the kinds of questions you need to know and ask and understand what you're pulling out of your customer. We also have a sales script for your salespeople. If they're calling somebody, what are the questions they should be asking? How do they present themselves? We have a template for doing proposals. And again, that template is designed around this whole policy. It's about them. So many of these templates or so many of these proposals you read is that we were founded in 2000 whatever, and my grandfather did this, and nobody cares.
And all the awards that they've won. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we start off with, briefly, this is how we see the problem that you have brought up to us, and this is how we're going to work through this to answer it. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And we have the software, we have all of the tools. We can be a one-stop shop for you for everything. And again, I don't want to take a lot of time selling my product to you, but I just want you to know that if you are interested, We have the tools to help you. I will get onto a call with you, with your customer, and answer any of the cybersecurity questions. So it's not like I'm going to just dump this all on you and then you have to go and try to figure it out. No, you are our customer and we're going to make you successful. And if I can make you successful and you can make your customer successful, well, guess what? Then I become successful. So it's a nice circle.
So Dovell, I know we're getting a little short on time here. I do have a question here that somebody's popped in here, so I wanted to make sure we get this out before we have to go. I've got somebody who asked me, I won't mention your name, but somebody asked, you mentioned about, what's it say here? You mentioned about sharing and margins. What are margins for MSPs?
Well, we start everybody off starting, without having done anything yet at 30% margin is what you make. This is on our licenses and our support. Now, if you're starting to look at the readers and the cards, because you need those too, and you're not familiar with it, we can be a one-stop shop and we can get you those. Those margins are going to be in the 15% because I'm not manufacturing them. I have no control over them. But it's not proprietary. If you already have readers and cards and stuff that you're working with and suppliers, great, work with them. I'm not trying to take their business from you. I'm just trying to make it so it's successful for you. But we do have, if you start bundling it, things like, let's say you're also selling Office 365 licenses and Windows 10 licenses and other services, and our product works in with all those services of how you secure that login portion of it. You get a 2% additional margin on that for your Marcom dollars. And then if you start moving up and doing a lot of sales and all, then you get up to, I think it's 35% margin. Plus, we sell our licenses on a volume basis. You are our customer, so we're looking at your volume. If you have a simple one-to-one of 100 to 100, that's the 30%. But let's say you've got 10 customers, all at 100. Well, now you're going to be buying at the 1,000 unit price, which is a lot less, but you're selling at the 100. So you're going to make more than 30% on the margin on that, because now you're getting the volume discounts that you can pass on to your customer. And it doesn't mean the first order has to be a large 1,000 unit. No, it's that we're going to work with you over time. And let's say it's 6 months or a year, whatever it's appropriate, we work out. That's what we'll agree to. But that's the volume discounts that you can get.
Okay, Dovell, I've got one more other question. I got a couple more questions here, but we've got time for one more. And the question is, what do we have to do as an MSP to bring the customers on? So I think John. So I think John's question is, how involved do we have to get to onboard somebody when this is new to us and we don't know your system yet?
You just have to answer. Yeah, it's just asking one simple little question of just saying, hey, do you have a logical access cybersecurity requirement that you're trying to meet? What is it? And they'll tell you, oh yeah, we've got to meet such and such and such and such. Oh, we have a partner who can help you with that. Let me get back to you. And then you contact us and we'll start working with you of how you go and close that sale.
Okay, sounds good. We do the last question. I think we can get this in real quick.
Yeah.
Brian's asked, so what do we have to do to become a reseller? I mean, I guess we probably should have answered that. I thought we did, but let's
rub your tummy, tap your head at the same time now.
Thanks,
no, we have a reseller's agreement, so just contact us and we will get that over to you. It kind of includes a little bit of an NDA, but it just sets up the ground rules. From that, then you get the price list, you can get some of the material and such, and then we start working with you on how you close some of these deals and how to quote this and all the other tools. We're here to help you.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We're pretty much out of time here, but I wanted to thank everybody for sticking with us. We don't normally do webinars this long, but I think there's a lot of good content in here. I'm really, really hoping that you learned a little bit about, it's not about you, it's about your customer. And if you want to go deeper, it's about your customer's customer. And I think if you can understand that, you will sell more just by knowing just that. If you have some interest and want to know some more about becoming a reseller for Access Smart. Just put something in the chat real quick, and either I or Dovell can get back in touch with you, and we'll figure out how we can do that. So, Dovell, any last words before we sign off? Okay, I think we lost Dovell. Let's see.
Nope, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, hang on a second. I have one more quick question. What is the ideal market size for your product?
We can do anything from, we've done 6-person hospital or clinics to we're now doing a government overseas that they're going to be starting off with, I think, about 20,000 licenses.
Holy cow. Okay, so I think that's a kind of a wide range. So
yeah, so
okay,
it's very flexible. We work with any size. We're not limited to that. Oh, you only have to go to the big. We can work with the small, medium sizes. We can work with the large, international.
Okay, sounds good. Well, again, thanks everybody. We really appreciate your time. We know you're busy. I think that personally, and working with the MSPs, MSSPs especially, I would like to do anything I can to help you make profit. That's what the game's all about. And I think Dovell is a great resource for you to do that. That's why I asked him to come aboard today. So again, leave any notes in the chat, questions, whatever, and either Dovell or I can get back with you with some more information on this. But thanks everybody for showing up.
Thank you.